I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Wow. We've previously reported here on the MeidasTouch Network about the MAGA extremist Republican-elect George Santos from the 3rd Congressional District in New York, which just happens to be the congressional district where I grew up with my brothers. We previously reported that George Santos, we called him the Catch Me If You Can Congressman-Elect. His entire biography, his entire life story seems to have been entirely made up. I mean, his entire background he lied about, but now it seems to be more like the Manchurian Candidate than Catch Me If You Can. So just to recap, we previously did a report where we discussed and we explained how George Santos apparently lied about everything in his life. We've now learned about even more lies than we've previously reported on, and the previous lies we discussed came from a great piece by New York Times. I wish the article would have come out during the midterm election so we're not confronting this total apparent fraud right now. But in any event, what we learned is that George Santos, who was elected as the MAGA Republican Congressman-elect now in the 3rd Congressional District, he claimed he went to Baruch College and graduated in 2010. There's no records of him graduating from Baruch College in 2010. He claimed he worked as an associate asset manager at Citigroup. Citigroup has no records of him working for Citigroup, and they didn't even have an asset management division at the time Santos claims to work there, so there wasn't even a position, associate asset manager. Santos also claims that he worked at Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs has no record of Santos working there. Santos claimed that he was the embodiment of the American dream and he was a successful financier. There's absolutely no records of that. In fact, the records that do exist point to the contrary. For example, in 2015, there was an eviction proceeding against him for failing to pay $2,250 in rent. And then in 2017, there was another eviction proceeding. Both took place in Queens. This one for his failure to pay $10,000 in rent, and he was hit with a $12,200 judgment. In addition, he claims that he led a nonprofit called Friends of Pets United, but there is no IRS tax-exempt entity with that name. And the only animal rescue group that apparently did something with this potential entity by Santos claimed to the New York Times that Santos stiffed him and didn't pay them the few $1,000s that Santos claimed he had raised on their behalf. What we're now learning as well is that Santos has lied about a number of other things. Santos has lied, apparently, about the fact that his mom was a female executive at a financial institution. There's no record of that. He claims that his mother was a survivor of 9/11 and that she was in the South Tower. In fact, in his biography, it said she survived the World Trade Center attack in the South Tower, but sadly passed away years later. There's no record that she was in the South Tower. There's no record that she worked there. She passed away in 2016, not in 2001 or anywhere near 2001. We have the GoFundMe of her funeral expenses because George Santos wasn't making any money during that time period. In fact, the time period where George Santos first claims to have been making money for the first time are on his congressional disclosures leading up to this midterm election. He previously ran against the Democratic member of Congress, Tom Suozzi, who was the member of Congress from the 3rd Congressional District, and Santos lost in 2020. Then Suozzi decided it would be a good idea. It was a horrific idea for him to try to challenge New York Governor Kathy Hochul and primary her. Suozzi lost his seat, and then George Santos was able to win that seat that Suozzi forfeited in these midterm elections. But in the 2020 election that Suozzi defeated Santos on, Santos claimed he was only making about $50,000 a year for this company called Linkbridge. Santos also worked for this company that was like this Ponzi scheme out in Florida that was sued for $17 million by the SEC. But all of a sudden in 2021, he started working for himself at this company called the DeVolder Organization. And on his financial disclosures, he claims that that he was now making about $750,000 a year plus $1 million in dividends. He all of a sudden loaned his congressional campaign over $700,000. And again, this is someone who was making almost no money and who was evicted as of 2015 and 2017. He also came out leading up to the midterm elections on tenants' rights issues as being against tenants, as being on behalf of landlords, even though he was evicted twice as a tenant, and he was complaining about all of these tenants at his various properties who were not leaving and not paying their rent, even though there's no record of any of his properties at all. So again, some of the new lies that we got is that he claims that his mom was a first female executive at a financial institution. No record of that. Claims she was in the South Tower. No record of that. He claims that he's half Jewish, and a magazine called Forward, which is an independent Jewish magazine, looked at his genealogy, and it contradicts his statements about his mom. He horrifically apparently lied that his mother comes from a family that was a survivor of the Holocaust. He claims that the family was from Ukraine and left Ukraine and went to Brazil to flee the Holocaust and then changed their last name. There's no record of that. In fact, what there is a record of is that his grandparents are from Rio de Janeiro, not that they fled from Ukraine. Also, their posts from his mother on Facebook are posts where she likes and posts things about Jesus Christ and other Christian imagery, and doesn't post anything about Judaism at all, but posts things about Christianity, about Jesus. And so it's one, he seems to have lied again that his family fled the Holocaust. Who lies about your family fleeing the Holocaust? I guess someone who also lies that your mother was in 9/11 and lies about all these other things. And then apparently lying about his mother being Jewish and him being half Jewish. And why would he make up that lie? Long Island is a heavily Jewish area, specifically the 3rd Congressional District. And so him using that would be something that could potentially be politically advantageous for him in the 3rd Congressional District. One of the other things that we're learning about as well, this one from a Daily Beast report, is that he's always claimed that he is openly gay and that he never had to hide it in the Republican Party, and the Republican Party is very welcoming. Well, it turns out that he was married to a woman up until 2019, which is when he ran the first time and lost in Congress. But he's never addressed that he's been married to a woman. And look, given that he's lied about everything, it's unclear if he's gay. It's unclear if he was hiding the marriage. Who knows what is going on here? But nonetheless, he branded himself publicly as saying that he was openly gay and then never addressed the fact that he was actually married to a woman up until 2019, which is what the Daily Beast points out. And then also he claims that he's currently married, but there is no marriage record to his current husband. And he claims that his husband is a pharmacist, and there's also no record of that as of right now, of his husband being a pharmacist. Like everything's a lie, it appears, like from all of this reporting. I mean, lying about his religion, lying about fleeing the Holocaust, lying about owning properties, lying about religion, lying about literally, lying about college, lying about the jobs, lying about everything, didn't have money, and then all of a sudden, right before this election, right before these midterms, he comes into a lot of money. This organization called the DeVolder Organization, that's his mother's maiden name, DeVolder. And by the way, one of the weird things about George Santos, when you start digging deeper too, he used all these aliases throughout his life too. Sometimes he called himself George DeVolder. Sometimes he called himself George DeVolder Santos. Sometimes he called himself DeVolder. He would just use all of these different names, but now he's going with George Santos. But he started this apparently Devolder organization, which also has a very weird mission statement about what he claims the Devolder organization does. He claims that it makes capital introductions, that it is a consulting company that is a liaison between investment funds and investors. Well, one of the things that you have to fill out on your congressional disclosure forms is that if a client pays you more than $5,000, which if he's making all of this money from this entity that just started in 2020 or 2021, the Devolder organization, which claims that it is a liaison between investment funds and investors, so that means he would have clients, but he didn't disclose a single client paying him more than $5,000 for the year. And so where is that money coming from? Who is paying him this money? How did he get all of this money all of a sudden? What does the Devolder organization even do? No one really knows what it does. Now, one of the other stories, though, that has come out recently, and I think we have to reconcile these stories and look at them together, is that the groups that were heavily funding the political action committees of George Santos have links to Russian oligarchs. And specifically, someone by the name of Andrew and Trader is a cousin of a Russian oligarch, Viktor Velksberg. And Viktor Velksberg is a billionaire Russian oligarch, very loyal to Vladimir Putin. Andrew and Trader is the cousin to Viktor Velksberg, who is the cousin and cash handler for Velksberg, who gave a lot of money to the political action committee of George Santos. George Santos has come out and has been very, to say critical would be putting it lightly, of Ukraine. He's called Ukraine a totalitarian regime. He's taken all of Putin's side on everything. Not only has he been a critic of President Zelensky in Ukraine, but he has called for defunding of Ukraine. He's been a cheerleader for Putin. Again, he's called Zelensky a totalitarian, and has been really one of the biggest pro-Putin advocates here in these midterm elections. And now his role in Congress, you know, if he can get on the Intelligence Committee, if he can try to get on one of these committees, could provide not just the support of the propaganda that Vladimir Putin is looking for here, but also to provide information. It's why at the beginning of this video, I said at first this seemed like Catch Me If You Can. It seemed like a guy who was just lying about everything, who should be removed on that basis. But the more you dig into it, the more you see these connections with Russia, the more you see all of these lies taking place, lying about everything, the more it seems that it could be something far more sinister taking place here. In normal times, if this was a Democrat, we would expel this person immediately. We would expel this person immediately because Democrats have standards. Even situations where people shouldn't get kicked out, we kick people out sometimes if they don't meet these incredible exacting standards. But here, knowing all of this, do you think for a moment, if he's still willing to vote for Kevin McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy will put this guy on a committee? Kevin McCarthy would appoint this guy to get all of our top secret information as long as you got to vote, because they have no standards at all. Let me just read for you as well a statement that Santos just put out as well. Again, this is incredibly odd. And literally as of the recording of this video, he goes, "To the people of New York 3, I have my story to tell, and it will be told next week. I want to assure everyone that I will address your questions and that I remain committed to deliver the results I campaigned on. Public safety, inflation, education, and more. Happy holidays to all." If you think this story is going away, George Santos, you are sadly mistaken. Just like all of these new members of the GOP and what the Republican Party has become, You, sir, seem to be a traitor. You, sir, are despicable, and we are going to hold you accountable at each and every step here at the MeidasTouch Network. I'm Ben Meiselas. Hit the subscribe button. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers thanks to your incredible support. Also, consider supporting us at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. patreon.com/MeidasTouch. We have great exclusive content you could only get at Patreon, but most importantly, help grow this independent media platform. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
MeidasTouch is unapologetically pro-democracy. And look, we know you are too. So please make sure you check out our best-selling shirt and our best-selling gear, the unapologetically pro-democracy gear. And hey, while you're at it, make sure you check out my favorite shirt and one of our most famous designs. It wasn't rigged, you're just a loser. At store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.